Today, I'm going to talk about an amazing way to improve speaking. It's actually really effective, but yet almost no one talks about this as a method to improve spoken English. Then again, they probably don't mention this because it's counterintuitive or goes against common sense or logic. So, what is this awesome secret tip? Well, it's writing. That's right, you heard me correctly. To improve our spoken English, we should write more. For, as author Jules Renard says, writing is the only way to talk without being interrupted. So it makes sense that if we haven't yet mastered a language, we do something where there's no pressure of being interrupted or having someone wait for us. The French philosopher Voltaire defined writing a little more romantically. He said, writing is like painting for the voice. And it's true that writing a text is a bit like painting a picture. It's a way of materializing our ideas or the images we have in our heads. But that also means it requires work, preparation, execution, correction. That's why we often don't write much when we're learning a foreign language. We prefer to read or listen. In other words, we prefer passive activities that don't require too much effort. It's normal. I'm like that too. I'm a bit lazy. But it's also a shame. It's a pity because writing is a great way to learn. And I'm going to show you why. First of all, for introverts, writing is easier than talking. When you're writing, you're alone, all with a blank sheet of paper. You don't worry about what others think because no one's watching you. There's no one in front of us to judge what we write. So it's less stressful. You have more time to think about what you want to say. That's why in future lessons, I will recommend some writing practices. And even recommend that you write dialogue. It's a form of practice, of preparation. And once you've written a text and you're sure there are no mistakes, it's a good idea to read it out loud. A bit like giving a speech. That way, you get used to speaking and expressing your ideas clearly. And that's another great advantage of writing. It allows us to see what we need to truly convey our ideas. So, unlike listening or reading, when we write, we create our own content. We create things that are really relevant, that make sense to us. We also realize the words that we need, the unique things we want to say and we want to talk about. This is very useful because we've all been in that situation where we're missing a word in a discussion. We need a specific word, but we have no idea how to say it in English. And that destabilizes us. It breaks the rhythm of the conversation. What's more, it gives us the impression that we haven't mastered the language very well. When we write, we can easily identify the words and expressions we need. We can learn them calmly and then use them in our conversations later. And I'm sure we've all experienced this. Sometimes we forget a word that we just learned. You know you've already learned it, but when you need it in a conversation, you just can't remember it. Here, too, in this situation, writing can help. Numerous studies have shown that writing is good for our memory. In particular, writing by hand, not by computer. When you write a word, you see the letters that make up the word. It's more precise than when you pronounce it. Honestly, I myself don't write by hand because I'm always in a rush and it just takes too long. I prefer to write on a laptop. This is also useful because, as we shall see, we can use the free tools like ChatGPT and other translators to check our sentences for us. In other words, we can improve without a teacher. It's most effective if you first try to write your own sentence all by yourself. After this, you can copy and paste it into a translator, and you will see how close you were to expressing your idea. Then you can take the translated text and switch it back into English. In this way, you will discover the ways to improve. The last major advantage of writing is grammar. It's easier to correct mistakes in a written text than in oral conversation. Plus, you can practice specific points and target them. For example, if you're having trouble with putting verbs in the correct tense, or as we say, conjugating verbs, you can write a text about what you did last weekend. This way you can practice. If you're struggling with linking words like whereas or however, you can write sentences that start with them. If you want to practice formal English, you can write a speech or a cover letter. In short, the possibilities are endless. Finally, I'd like to give you a few ideas for adding writing to your learning routine. The first is to keep a diary. You can write down the things you're doing, but also how you're feeling, the things you're happy about, your goals for the week, and so on. It's a very easy way to stay motivated, and I have several students who love it. The advantage of this technique is that it forces you to write every day. Another method is to write summaries and reviews of films or books. When you've seen a film or finished a book, you can write down your impression in English in a special notebook or document. It's a good exercise for remembering and learning vocabulary. Just remember to put all the vocabulary in the same place as we talked about. In this course, I will have writing prompts or questions that relate to the subjects in the video topics. This will be a great way for you to practice the new vocabulary and get comfortable with actively using the language. As always, however, it's important to remember the most important thing to ensure your English success. Do the activities you like. Do the activities you enjoy. If you absolutely hate writing and you feel sleepy just thinking about, don't write in the journal. Do a different activity. Because the more time we spend in the language, the more we will improve automatically. And the more we enjoy the time we are in the language, the more time we will spend in it. Are you beginning to see how this works?